I swear I never thought my own birthday would turn into the kind of scene people whisper about for years. The kind that splits a family in half and forces everyone to show what side they've actually been standing on all along. But the moment my daughter-in-law stood up, pointed at me, and screamed loud enough that even the neighbors probably heard, everything inside me froze. It was like someone had dropped a plate in slow motion, and every piece of my life shattered at once. And the worst part, instead of defending me or even trying to calm the situation, everyone chose a side right there, on my birthday, in my own home. Tell me honestly, if someone humiliated you on your birthday, in front of your entire family, would you really stay quiet like they expected me to? Or would you snap too? Let me start from the beginning, because the truth is, none of this chaos started that night. It had been building for years like a storm gathering behind a quiet sky. And like most storms, by the time the thunder hit, it was already too late to escape it. I want to say things were normal, peaceful even, before my son married her, my daughter-in-law, Amal. But even that wouldn't be the truth. I had felt something in my gut the first day he brought her home to meet me. You ever meet someone who smiles too perfectly, who talks so sweetly that it almost feels rehearsed? That was her. She was polite, well-spoken, dressed beautifully, and carried herself with a confidence that felt almost theatrical. My son, Daniel, was smitten beyond belief. And God knows, as a mother, when your child is happy, you try your best to be happy too. But even in that first meeting, even as I offered her tea, and she complimented everything from the curtains to the sugar bowl, something in her eyes told me she was measuring me, evaluating me, like she was taking notes on what she could later use against me. Still I tried. I tried harder than I've tried for most people in my life. Because Daniel deserved support, he deserved peace. And for the first year of their marriage, that's exactly what I tried to create around them. But little things started revealing themselves. Things Daniel didn't notice, or maybe chose not to. Things like how Amal would purposely talk over me if I was speaking, smiling like she didn't realize what she was doing. How she always had to correct me in small ways. Actually, it's pronounced like this? No, that brand isn't good. Oh, we don't cook it that way now. Always subtle enough to sound innocent. Never loud enough for Daniel to catch it. She was smart, very smart. And I kept telling myself maybe I was overreacting, maybe I was reading too much into things. After all, I am the mother-in-law. People expect tension. Maybe I was becoming exactly what people like to joke about. So I calmed myself down, over and over, letting her comments slide, letting her backhanded compliments wash over me, letting her passive-aggressive tone become normal in my home. But every time she visited, I felt myself become smaller, quieter, like my existence was somehow taking space she didn't want me to have. Still I tolerated. What else could I do? Confront her. That would make me the villain. Complain to my son. That would make me insecure. And so piece by piece, she chipped away at my confidence until I was second-guessing myself in my own kitchen. Daniel, bless him, never saw it. Or maybe he saw just enough to ignore it. He loved her deeply, that much was obvious. And I didn't want to ruin that. So I bit my tongue, even when she'd sigh dramatically if I accidentally repeated a story I'd already told. Even when she made faces behind my back while Daniel was turned away. Even when she once joked, "Your mom is cute when she tries to stay updated." Because I didn't know some new app she mentioned. But what really broke me were the moments when she would twist reality so casually, it felt like gaslighting. Like the time she insisted I'd agreed to host an event at my house when I absolutely had not. Or when she said I'd forgotten something important when she had never told me in the first place. She had a way of making me feel incompetent without ever raising her voice. Until she finally did. Everything intensified when she got pregnant. You'd think pregnancy would soften someone, but with Amal it did the opposite. Suddenly, she acted like any opinion I gave, even when she asked for it, was an attack on her parenting. If I said the room looked cold for a newborn, she'd snap. "So now you're calling me careless." If I suggested a name, she'd roll her eyes and say, "We're not doing old-fashioned names." If I bought something for the baby, suddenly it was cheap, unnecessary, or not our style. I started feeling like an outsider to my own grandchild before he was even born. And when the baby finally arrived, a beautiful little boy named Zane, things only got worse. She refused to let me hold him unless Daniel was present. She criticized the way I touched him, talked to him, even looked at him. She'd snatch him away the second he fussed, as if I was responsible for upsetting him. Slowly, painfully. She made me feel like I didn't belong in his life. And the heartbreaking part is that I genuinely tried to love her. I genuinely tried to help her. I genuinely wanted us to be close. But every attempt I made became ammunition for her. Still, I swallowed all of it. Because the last thing I wanted was to ruin my relationship with my son. I told myself I could endure her disrespect if it meant Daniel didn't have to choose. But life has a way of forcing choices onto people, whether they want them or not. All of this leads up to my birthday. A day that was supposed to bring happiness, laughter, maybe even healing. Daniel had insisted they host it at my house, saying, "Mom, you deserve to be celebrated where you feel comfortable." My heart melted when he said that. It had been ages since I hosted anything big, and I was excited in a way I hadn't been in a long time. I spent days cleaning, decorating, planning the menu, making sure everything looked perfect. I even bought new tablecloths and flower arrangements. I wanted this to be a lovely day, one that brought my family closer again. But leave it to Amal to turn something simple into chaos. 2 days before the party, she called me in a tone that already told me she wasn't planning to be pleasant. "Just letting you know," she said. "I don't want too many people touching Zane. It's flu season, and I won't take risks." "Of course," I told her. "We'll be careful." "And," she continued, "please don't feed him anything without asking. I don't trust homemade purees. They're not measured properly." I swallowed my irritation. "No problem. And don't take him out to show the neighbors. Last time he got overstimulated." I pressed my lips together. "Understood, and Hamal," I finally interrupted gently. "I'm not trying to interfere. It's my birthday. I just want peace." She laughed softly, almost mockingly. "Peace follows rules, you know." I should have known right then things would explode. My relatives arrived slowly that afternoon, filling the house with warm chatter. The food smelled wonderful, everyone seemed excited, and I genuinely felt happy for the first time in a while. When Daniel walked in carrying Zane, my heart lit up. I reached out and hugged them both. Amal followed behind them, looking irritated already for reasons I couldn't begin to guess. Still, I greeted her warmly. "You look beautiful today," I said. She gave me a tight smile. "I'm tired." As the party started, I noticed she kept glancing at me every time I held Zane, like she expected me to drop him or break him. At one point, when I gently kissed his forehead, she stepped closer and said under her breath, "Please don't do that. He's teething. He's fussy enough." "It's just a kiss," I whispered back. "Exactly," she replied sharply. I exhaled slowly and handed him back, not wanting a scene so early in the evening, but the tension kept building. Every move I made seemed to bother her. Every person who talked to the baby got a warning from her. Every laugh, every smile, every tiny moment, Amal found a way to soar it. Still, I told myself, ignore it. It's your birthday, just breathe. Then came the moment that triggered everything. We were cutting the cake. Everyone was gathered around the dining table. I was standing in the center with Daniel, and Zane was sitting in his high chair next to us. Amal stood on the other side, arms crossed, watching me like a hawk. After the cake was cut, I leaned down, smiled at Zane, and playfully wiped a tiny bit of cream on his finger so he could taste it. Just a small little dab, harmless, the kind every grandmother does. And that's when she snapped. She rushed forward, grabbed the baby's hand, wiped it furiously with a napkin, and screamed, "Adu hesaw wrong guide you. Yumaiki, dio yo now listan. Ario utamaki am sasike." The entire room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. My hand froze mid-air. My heart dropped into my stomach. Everyone stared at her, then at me, waiting for what would come next. She wasn't finished. "You don't respect boundaries," she yelled. "You just do whatever you want because you think being the grandmother gives you rights over my child. Well, it doesn't. You had your chance to raise kids. This one is min." She was pointing at me like I'd committed some horrible crime. My relatives stood still, shocked. Some tried giving polite, awkward smiles to calm the mood, but Amal kept going. "You always interfere. You always try to act like you know better, and I'm K of it. You don't get to overstep with my son." I felt my face burning, not just from humiliation, but from heartbreak. On my birthday, in front of everyone, and the worst part was Daniel's expression, confused, torn, like he wasn't sure whether to defend me or avoid upsetting his wife. I looked at him, silently begging him to speak, to say something, anything. But before he could, someone else stepped in, and suddenly the whole family was taking sides. My sister spoke up first. "Amal, that was uncalled for. She didn't do anything." "Oh, stay out of it," Amal snapped. "This is between me and her." Then my brother took my side. Then Daniel's cousins spoke up for Amal. Then my niece defended me. Soon voices were overlapping, pointing, arguing, accusing. The room exploded. It was chaos, pure ugly chaos, and in the middle of it all, I just stood there, frozen, hurt, embarrassed in a way I've never experienced before. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. My family split in half over something so small, yet so symbolic of everything that had been happening for years. In that moment, I realized just how fragile everything truly was. And this was only the beginning of the nightmare. Because what happened after this argument, the decision I had to make, and how the family reacted afterward. That's the part where everything truly spiraled out of control. But before I tell you how the night ended, how things escalated even further, and the choice that changed everything, I want to ask you something directly. If you were in my shoes, if your daughter-in-law screamed at you, humiliated you, and turned your entire family into a battlefield, what would you have done? Would you have stayed quiet? Would you have defended yourself? Would you have walked out of your own birthday? Tell me honestly, because I really need to know. I stood there in my own dining room, watching my birthday celebration dissolve into shouting, accusations, and raw chaos, and I felt something deep inside me crack, not from anger, not even from humiliation anymore, but from this heavy, suffocating sadness that I couldn't shake. The kind of sadness that tells you nothing will ever go back to the way it was. You know that moment when you're right in the center of a storm, and everything is spinning so fast that all you can do is stand still because moving in any direction feels impossible. That's exactly where I was. And the worst part was that everyone around me, everyone I loved, was choosing a side like this was some ridiculous game. But to me, it felt like the destruction of our family right in front of my eyes. Voices kept escalating. My sister and niece were defending me fiercely, saying Amal was disrespectful and out of line. One of Daniel's cousins was arguing loudly that Amal was just being protective and that I should have known better. And in the midst of all of that noise, all of that back and forth shouting, all of that emotional violence, Daniel was silent, completely, painfully silent. He just stood there holding the edge of Zane's high chair like he needed something solid to keep himself from collapsing. I kept looking at him, hoping he would say something, anything, to calm things down, to remind everyone that this was my birthday, that this wasn't the time or place for this. But he said nothing, and that silence hurt more than anything Amal had screamed. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I put my hand up, not loudly, not dramatically, just firmly enough that the room slowly quieted down, voices fading into hesitant murmurs. Everyone looked at me, waiting for me to explode back or cry or do something to match the chaos around me. But I didn't have any strength left for that. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, in the calmest voice I could manage, "Everyone, please, stop. This is not what today was supposed to be." My sister rushed to my side and put her arm around me, asking softly, "Are you okay?" And I nodded, even though I wasn't okay, not even close. I felt like I was holding myself together with tape and hope. But I couldn't show that, not right then, not in front of all of them. I turned my eyes to Amal, who was holding Zane now, bouncing him slightly like she was the only one who cared about his comfort. Her face was still tense, still angry, still ready to accuse me of something else the moment I opened my mouth. But I didn't give her that chance, I said. I didn't mean any harm. It was just a tiny bit of cake on his finger. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't meant to upset you. You could have told me calmly. She scoffed loudly. Calm doesn't work with you. You don't listen unless someone forces you to? That comment felt like a slap, but I didn't react. I was too tired. Then, at long last, Daniel finally spoke. Amal, maybe we all overreacted. It's Mom's birthday. This isn't overreacted. She snapped at him. Your mother crossed a boundary. Again. And everyone is acting like I'm the problem. Daniel let out a long, defeated sigh, and for a moment, I saw in his eyes the man he used to be. Gentle, balanced, thoughtful. But now he was stuck in a corner, torn between his wife and his mother, both expecting him to stand with them. And honestly, I didn't want him to choose. Not like this. Not right now. Not in front of everybody. So before he could say anything else, I spoke again. Enough. I don't want this anymore. Everyone, please just go home. The party is over. The room fell silent. Then the murmurs started. My sister said, "No, don't end it because of her." My brother protested. We didn't even eat yet. Daniel's aunt whispered something under her breath about drama. But I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I just walked toward the kitchen to catch my breath, even though I felt like I could barely breathe at all. As I stood by the counter, holding onto its edge like it was the only thing keeping me steady, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see Daniel behind me, his eyes full of guilt. "Mom?" he said softly. "I'm sorry. I didn't think it would. I shook my head. Daniel, please. I don't want you to apologize for her. I don't want you to explain anything. Just go home. Take your family and go. He frowned. But it's your birthday. We came to celebrate you. I want to fix this. You can't fix something she doesn't want fixed, I said quietly. Just go. He opened his mouth to argue again, but then Emil walked into the kitchen, holding Zane tightly against her chest. Are we leaving or not? She asked sharply. Daniel looked at me helplessly, and for the first time in a very long time, I forced a genuine boundary of my own. I reached over, touched Zane's back for a brief second, and said softly, "Good night, sweetheart." Then I stepped back and said to Daniel, "Please. Just go." He swallowed hard, nodded, and walked out. Amel didn't say goodbye. Of course she didn't. She just turned her shoulder toward me and walked away, muttering something about never coming here again. I didn't know then how serious that threat would become. After they left, the rest of the family tried to comfort me. Some stayed longer than they needed to, offering hugs and words of support. Others quietly slipped out, not wanting to make the situation worse. But eventually, the house emptied out. Every room felt too quiet, too big. All the decorations I'd put up with so much hope looked sad and useless now. I sat at the dining table alone, staring at the half-melted cake, the unused plates, the abandoned decorations, and I broke. I cried in a way I hadn't cried in years. Not because of the screaming, not because of the embarrassment, but because I finally realized something heartbreaking: the family I once knew no longer existed. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy ache behind my eyes. I didn't want to check my phone, but I also knew I couldn't avoid it forever. When I finally picked it up, I saw message after message, some from relatives apologizing for their behavior, some from people who had taken Amel's side, saying I was insensitive, that I should have respected modern parenting, that I had overstepped. It was unbelievable. It felt like a war had broken out overnight, and people were choosing sides based on rumors instead of truth. But the worst message wasn't from anyone in the family. It was from Daniel. "Mom, can we talk today? Amel is very upset. She doesn't want me or Zane to visit for a while. She thinks you crossed a boundary. I don't want to cut anyone off, but I also need to protect my family. I'm stuck. I don't know what to do." I stared at that message for a long, long time. I knew exactly what Amel had done. She'd spun the story to make herself the victim. She'd finally gotten what she wanted: control. And now she was pushing Daniel into a corner, making him believe I was the one who'd caused the damage. I didn't want to lose my son. I didn't want to lose my grandson. But I also couldn't let Amel continue treating me like the enemy. So I told Daniel yes, we could talk. I asked him to come alone. I knew Amel wouldn't allow it, but I needed at least one attempt to fix this before everything shattered beyond repair. He arrived 2 hours later, looking exhausted, stressed, older somehow. The moment he stepped into the house, I saw the little boy he used to be, the one who used to run into my arms after school, the one who used to tell me everything. But that boy was long gone, and in his place stood a man torn between two worlds. We sat on the couch in the living room. He didn't speak at first. Neither did I. Finally, he sighed and said, "Mummal is really hurt." I bit my tongue. "And I'm not." He rubbed his forehead. I know. But she feels like you don't respect her boundaries as a mother." "I do respect her boundaries," I replied softly, "but she doesn't respect me. At all." He deflated slightly. "She's just protective. She worries. She humiliates me, Daniel," I said, my voice breaking. "She talks to me like I'm stupid. She treats me like I'm an enemy, and you've seen it. Don't pretend you haven't." He looked away. "I see tension, but I don't know how to fix it." "You can't fix it," I said gently, "because she doesn't want peace. She wants control." He didn't deny it. That said enough. Then came the moment I dreaded. He took a deep breath and said, "Amal doesn't want us coming here for now. She says she needs space. She needs time to recover." "Recover?" I repeated, stunned. "Recover from what?" "From yelling at me in my own home." He swallowed hard. "Mom, please don't make this harder." "I'm trying." I stared at him, feeling something inside me collapse. "Daniel, is she asking you to cut me off?" He paused, too long of a pause. "Not permanently," he finally said. "Just for now." And that was it. That was the moment I realized Amel had won. Whatever war she'd been fighting in her head since the day she met me, she'd finally managed to convince Daniel that I was the problem. I felt numb. "So what now?" He shrugged helplessly. "I don't know. But I need to think about my marriage. And your mother," I whispered. He looked away. "I'll always love you. But Emil is my wife. I didn't cry in front of him. I don't know how I controlled myself. I just nodded slowly and said, I understand. Even though I didn't understand any of it. He left shortly afterward. I stood at the window and watched him drive away, feeling like the house had never been emptier in my whole life. I kept waiting for a text, a call, a message, some sign that he regretted what he said. But nothing came. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2, silence, complete silence, until something happened that pushed everything to its breaking point. One afternoon, I went to the nearby store to buy groceries. I wasn't thinking about anything special, just trying to get through another day without breaking down. And as I walked past the baby aisle, my heart tightened. I saw a woman holding a baby boy, bouncing him gently as she talked to her friend. And for some reason, that simple scene cracked me completely. I missed Zane so much it hurt physically. I missed his smell, his soft hair, his tiny hands. I missed being a grandmother. And for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to admit it. Amal had taken him away from me. She'd taken everything. When I got home, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I called Daniel. He answered after 3 rings, sounding tired and cautious. Mom, I need to see you. Today? Please. There was a long silence. Then he said, Okay, I'll come alone. This time, when he arrived, I didn't ask him to sit. I didn't sugarcoat anything. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, Daniel, I'm done being the villain in her story. He looked startled. Mom? No? I interrupted. Listen to me. I have never tried to steal your child. I have never disrespected your wife. I have bent over backwards trying to make this work. But she doesn't want it to work. She wants control. She wants distance. And now she's using Zane as leverage. He didn't deny it. Not this time. He looked down at his hands and whispered, I know? That admission shook me. Then why are you letting her do this? He exhaled shakily. Because I'm scared of losing my family. And what am I? I asked. Tears finally spilling down my cheeks. What am I to you? What is Zane to me? Am I supposed to sit quietly and let her erase me from your life? Daniel broke then. Truly broke. He started crying, something I had not seen since he was a child. He kept repeating, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make both of you happy. I feel trapped. I pulled him into a hug, and for a brief moment, I felt like I had my son back. But reality didn't change. When he pulled away, he whispered something that shattered whatever hope I had left. Mom, I think Emil wants us to move out of the city. Closer to her parents. She says it's better support for her. I felt my knees weaken. And you're going to go? He didn't answer. And that silence told me everything. That night I stayed awake for hours. Thinking about everything, years of tension, disrespect, manipulation, humiliation, heartbreak, and I realized something important. I had spent so much time trying to keep the peace that I had allowed myself to be walked on. I had allowed someone else's insecurities to dictate my relationship with my own child, and I wasn't going to let that continue. The next day I went to their house. Without calling, without warning, I needed to see Amal face to face, woman to woman. Daniel wasn't home. Amal opened the door, holding Zane on her hip. She looked surprised, and immediately defensive. What are you doing here? I'm here to talk, I said calmly. She raised an eyebrow. About what? About everything, I replied. And don't worry, I'm not here to argue. She sighed dramatically but stepped aside to let me in. I walked into their living room, and for a moment, memories of a happier time flooded me. The baby toys, the framed pictures, the soft blanket draped over the couch. This was my son's home. This was my grandson's home. And yet I felt like an intruder. Emil placed Zane in his playpen and crossed her arms. Say what you came to say. I looked her straight in the eyes. You don't like me. I've understood that for a long time. She didn't deny it. And you're afraid I'll influence Zane. Afraid I'll be too involved. Afraid Daniel will listen to me more than you. Her eyes narrowed. But here's what you don't understand, I continued. I'm not your enemy. I never have been. She rolled her eyes. You always make yourself the victim. That stung, but I kept my voice steady. I have tried to build a relationship with you. I have tried to respect your decisions. But you treat me like a threat, and now you're punishing Daniel and Zane because of your resentment toward me. She opened her mouth, but I kept going. You're pushing him away from his own family, and one day he will resent you for that. Not me. Now she finally snapped. You think you know everything. You think you're superior. You think you're entitled to our life. I'm entitled to nothing, I said quietly. Except basic respect. She laughed bitterly. Respect. You don't want it to cry. I wanted to scream. But instead, I said something I never thought I'd say. If you want space from me, fine. You'll have it. I won't visit uninvited. I won't interfere, but you will not take my son away from me, and you will not move him away without giving me a chance to say goodbye. She paused. A long, stunned pause. You think Daniel would leave you? She finally said. You're already trying to make him, I replied. But listen to me carefully. If you force him to choose, you may win the battle now, but you will lose him in the long run. For the first time ever, she looked uncertain. We didn't solve everything. We didn't hug, we didn't agree. But something shifted in that room. Something cracked in her armor. She wasn't as confident as she pretended to be. And that same evening, Daniel called me. Mama told me you came. She said you were honest. She said you stood up for yourself. I held my breath. Then he said something I'll never forget. She realized she went too far. She's not ready to apologize yet, but she said she's willing to try. I almost collapsed with relief. Over the next few weeks, things slowly, very slowly, began to change. Amal didn't become warm overnight, but she stopped attacking me. She stopped blocking me from seeing Zayn. She started allowing Daniel to visit more. And eventually, this shocked me. She even messaged me once, asking if I knew a good home remedy for teething pain. It wasn't friendship. It wasn't closeness. But it was something better than war. And on Zayn's first birthday, when she handed him to me and said, "Here, you can hold him first," I felt tears sting my eyes. Because even though we still had a long way to go, she had taken the first real step toward peace. Looking back at everything, the screaming, the humiliation, the tears, the fractured family, I learned something very important. Peace doesn't come from silence. Peace comes from standing your ground with honesty, boundaries, and love. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is speak the truth, even when your voice shakes. So if you were on my side, if you understood my pain, my choices, my fear, my heartbreak, then please like this video. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your thoughts in the comments, because I truly want to know what you think. Was I wrong? Was I right? Would you have handled things differently? I'll see you all in the next story.